Since our population is still growing, it's also my job to find ways to house this population, among others. I think we should look for a different kind of architecture, a different kind of urbanism to address. When I studied architecture, I was also studying nature. Since I grew up in a city, I didn't know so much about nature. So here I'm sitting, studying the ecosystems of nature. And I was really wondering how it's possible that our cities are so abstract and cold and harsh, while we run out of them to nature to recharge our batteries. And sitting there, I realized that that's also because in nature everything is an ecosystem, everything is connected, everything is part of everything else. And in our cities, we tend to separate everything from each other, working, living. That's why we waste a lot of energy and time. So also trying to design beautiful things, we tend to start thinking you have to make something beautiful and then forming it that way. But in nature, everything grows and transforms automatically based on only merely logical rules. So there I thought there was kind of a clue for me to develop a new kind of architecture that would be based on the natural rules more. Also, while studying, I did some excursions into industrial wastelands. And these were for me really more inspiring areas to be, because there you see what I miss in the city, that the nature takes over architecture and architecture becomes part of nature more. So it's more integrated places. Funny enough, also industry got my fascination, like these kind of oil refineries, for me to resemble much more nature than the modern architectural language or classical architectural language does. Because those languages just represent some power system, or they represent an idea about modernity that is based on industrialization, while this kind of industrial architecture, although it reminds most people of the way we destroy the planet, to me is the most natural architecture we make, because it's based on logics and its design comes from the systems that are within it. So when we started our company, Jan Jongert and me founded 2012 Architects in 1997. That was one of our main concepts, is that if we start a project, we have to analyze the different systems that are important for the project separately, and then try to integrate them into an architecture. Well, our first projects were pretty simple. They were art projects and interior projects, where the only layers that were of importance were functionality, which we learned very good in school, and materials. Now, this is where most of the materials that we use are processed, for instance, in China. We add a lot of energy and intelligence to these resources to become products, complicated products, which after a lifetime, as we know, of sometimes a few years, sometimes several years, but sometimes even just a few seconds, we dispose of and store them in these kind of storage facilities, which for us, and then we call it waste. And for us, this is not waste, this is our main resource. All the resources that we have been digging up using the abundance of oil the last 150 years, we think we should reuse them several times, and so then we don't have to dig up anything anymore. I'm convinced about that. For instance, with washing machines, a project that we made in the beginning, as an example, we made prototypes for architecture in the beginning, camouflaged as art projects. From 5 washing machines, we made a module. And 5 of these modules traveled around Europe for 4 years, showing that you can make architecture from wasted washing machines. It was our Miele space station, able to generate space and able just not to fly. But then, in the end, we were very happy after 4 years of carrying that lightweight structure around. It was bought from us by the Technical University Delft, where we studied architecture. And we thought, okay, now it's going to last there for generations to come and to be inspired by our work. But unfortunately, 1 year later, the whole faculty of architecture burned down. And our first experiment was trashed. But not even such a big problem, because as we know, there is enough washing machines wasted yearly to build 10 million space stations a year. So if anyone is looking for a material to make a nice design, washing machines are all around the world. And that applies to a lot of materials. For instance, this kind of windshields from cars. We found one factory in Europe that wastes 12,000 windshields yearly, because it's dead stock. It's from an Audi 100. That car doesn't drive around so much anymore. So the stock is wasted yearly, and they pay for it. So they also are very happy to deliver those materials to our project for free. So we used 300 windshields to build cupboards for the shoe stock. So we made a design shop made from waste, 100% waste. For me, that's also important that it doesn't look like waste, that it can be new design, slick design. But the quantity for us is important, because if you have 12,000 windshields every year, you could also clad some non-functioning 70s architecture with it and give it a climate facade on the south, changing it into an energy delivering building. Which brings me to the energy, the renewable energy industry, which is not only giving renewable energy, but unfortunately also creates quite some waste. One windmill blade is inspected here by Jeroen for its qualities. It's like 4,000 kilograms of unrecyclable plastics and glass fiber mixed through each other. So that gives something to think. There's a worldwide growing renewable energy market, but there's also a worldwide growing new waste stream evolving. Like 20,000 windmill blades a year are being wasted, or shredded and burnt to give grey energy, it's called. Well, we thought, okay, if these blades are falling from the trees, from the windmill parks everywhere, we might as well use it as a building material, because it's a high quality material, and used on the ground, it can last for another 100 years, not 200 years, I don't know how long. So we used 5 of them to create this play garden, making a composition that generated a diverse area for the kids to play in, and have the small kids playing in one corner, the bigger kids playing more fast games in another corner, playing football in the middle, or by overlaying them, creating a place to sit for the parents, which gave us also what also shows a bit that these aerodynamic forms of the blades, when you use them like this, turn into ergonomical forms. You get really a kind of economy for free. The kids can roll from it, play on it, lay on it. The parents lay in the sun on it. And cutting them in pieces, we created towers and tunnels. I shouldn't forget to breathe. And in those tunnels, the children can run behind each other endlessly, which also shows a bit, this interior shows a bit also what I think is one of the qualities that we reached with this play garden, is that what I think in nature, everything is very ambivalent. You don't really know what it is. We make things that symbolize something. But in this playground, the kids are still free to use their fantasy. They don't know what it is. They don't understand if it's a castle or a glacier or some rocky mountains or some, I don't know what it is. And that's, I think that's a good quality, because then they can invent their own games there. They are inspired. And also I think because there's 20,000 of these blades falling from the wind parks yearly, you can see them as new like the leaves falling from a tree. You can see them as new material to build new things upon. So it's not only for us an interesting idea to use these materials, we are trying to spread it through the world, that this is just materials for designers to use. There's enough of it. And we don't have a patent on it. I mean, it's just material. Like these, the cable reels. How much time I have? The cable reels, 200 of them are wasted in a little factory near Rotterdam. We used 5 of them to create this little ferry as one of our first, like the art projects, where we try to understand what the material means, what it is. We build it ourselves. I mean, we actually build it by hand. But then we start to understand what is the quality of the material. The material is made from these round circles that are... The cable reels itself are nice for temporary installations, but there's a lot of rotting in the wood. But the planks that are forming the core of the cable reel, they are a perfect building material, because it's like 2 square meters for each cable reel in perfect condition. And if you that is usable for architecture. But I go first to this one. This is what we call a harvest map. That's one of the tools we developed over the years to be able to source materials locally instead of importing materials from the other side of the planet because we like them. We first start with the project, we make an abstract sketch, not completely defined design yet. Then we start to search for materials, for waste materials available in the area. And then we connect the needs from the abstract sketch with the availability of materials. So the materials basically design the project. Because then you don't have to waste a lot of energy on transforming the materials the way you want them to be. But you just follow, you listen to the material. And this is the result of it. It's our first fully made from waste villa in Enschede. Constructed with metal from textile machines and insulated with leftovers from camper industry. And cladded with wood. And the south facade of this is the south facade of the house, which is much more open than the north facade, because we want to gain a bit of energy from the sun on the south and keep it inside by closing the north. In the production, the graphs you see next to it show the low ones are the CO2 emitted by the materials that we use, and normally it's like 90% more CO2 emitted by if you would build the same house with new materials. So we try to also always investigate if it really makes sense what we do, not only aesthetically but also environmentally. But that brings me to the next chapter, what I was already introduced. We're working on a concept called recyclicity, because making a house completely out of waste materials with a bit of a good solar orientation, it still basically was a modernistic house. It still was not a house that integrates with nature. It was a house made of waste, a modern villa made of waste, with the perfect, according to our government standards, perfect environmental impact, but still a modern house. So we're looking for to transform buildings completely into ecosystems, not only by using waste. We spent 12 years developing this waste, 12 years to be able to use waste in architecture, to prove that it's possible, to get the knowledge that it's possible, and to develop the tools. But now we are busy for 4 years trying to connect more systems, more layers into the architecture. And this is how we do urban planning. We divide the area into working areas, agricultural areas, living areas, and we spend all our day driving up and down to them and transporting goods between it. And this was also invented at the beginning of the last century, when industrialization just came about, because industry was very polluting physically. You could really see it and smell it, so we decided to separate all our activities from each other, because that would be good for us. By now, industries are less polluting and getting even less polluting, and if it's up to me, they will become part of nature more than anything else. So we could go back to integrating our cities, rendering a lot of good things. This is when we look at either a city area or a building. What the first step we make now is we make a analysis, a metabolistic analysis of the project, because we're also working together with industrial ecologists for this. So we use a lot of their tools and ways to think. It's like looking at a city, you can see that a lot of streams of materials are going in and out. That's the waste part. But also a lot of food is transported in and out, and a lot of water is transported in and out. And you see that mainly everything we use is transported in and out again. So that's a very strange way to make a system. So to make a system more efficient, we analyze these streams and see if we can connect them strategically within the system, within the boundaries of the system. If the system is a building or a region of a city, doesn't really matter. And these connections we call cyclifiers. And by giving them a name, we understood that there's a lot of cyclifiers already, and there's a lot of other companies working on that. Gunther Pauli is a good example of somebody who thinks in this way also, and makes it into really in entrepreneurship. Because every cyclifier gives you a possibility to create added value, to earn money, to make a smarter use of the waste that is produced by other companies. For instance, this one is by our local government, the Rotterdam Climate Initiative. Well, it's already there. We have heat from the industry in our office also, for instance. But they are planning to make it really systemized, to make a big pipe that is sourcing the energy that is wasted by the industry, and then giving it back to the city first into the housing, then agriculture, and then store it. But instead of just storing it, you could say, okay, that's the local swimming pool, the storage place. Or like these Scandinavian architects proposed for LA, which seems to be a pretty dry city, use the existing sewage canal, because also these cyclifiers always make use of the existing system. You don't make a completely new system, you transform the existing system, so you don't have to start new again, you can just use what is there. So they are using the sewer system to plant these strange mushrooms that will evaporate water into the city, so agriculture could be part of the city again. Which is also one of the things of this project, where we analyzed the shrinking city and said we can use the emptiness left by the shrinking to introduce agriculture, making use of the existing infrastructure for connecting the water pits that were left behind by the mining industry, adding agricultural greenhouses to the houses to make a CO2 and heat transmission between them, making that area more green, producing its own food, its own fish, its own vegetables, and giving employment again. And this last project I want to show is a music center in the center of Rotterdam that we're building at this moment. We made an entrance in the side wall, connecting the basement with the music place upstairs, and we used 2 airplanes to cover the inside to make an acoustic wall in the concert hall, and a lot of trespa on the floor and airplane chairs integrated into the wall. There's these ventilation shafts, the blue thing you see in the corner, which gives me a bit of a problem because we have a big ventilator standing on the roof of the building, wasting a lot of energy, and it doesn't fit my idea. But luckily we got the owner of the building enthusiastic about our idea, so he decided to change his roof into an urban farm where we are reusing the CO2 that is emitted by the dancing people downstairs into the glass houses to produce food on aquaponics, where is also fish produced that is all sold in a regional restaurant in the base of the building. And this is where our office is. I'm over time. But the last words, our office is in one of the left empty 70s building blocks, and we experience daily that it's really a sick building, so most people would say demolish this, but I think we have 8 million square meters of empty buildings that we can transform into more energy efficient buildings by reusing waste. So that's our next challenge, is to transform these buildings into ecosystems, transforming the whole city into an integrated system where agriculture, nature, technology and human are all interrelated. So my kids, hopefully in 20 years, can bring their kids walking to school, watching some birds, coming back, picking up some food from the local farmer and growing it, eating it on their rooftop farm, a rooftop garden, sorry. Thank you.